Yo, welcome to the Hoop Objective Podcast with your boy Armani. I haven't been posting in a while. Honestly, I haven't posted in a month. I was trying to get this set up and get all the equipment because I wasn't feeling the audio. So I rather give you guys more videos. It's not gonna only be. We're gonna have podcast episodes every day. This time, I'm serious. We're gonna do this every single day. I'm also gonna have like other YouTube videos. For example, I'm gonna have a series of, all the teams that miss the playoffs or all the teams that get eliminated throughout the playoffs or, who got eliminated throughout the play-in. I'm gonna have literally like breakdowns of, how their season went, their upcoming free agents and, the players they should be looking at for the draft and, everything of that nature. So, let's go ahead and get into it, man. So, starting off with episode 3. This is episode 3, first, episode with actual visuals. I want to get started with the recap, which, yesterday was a pretty good, series of playoff. It's a pretty good, it was a pretty good set of playoff games. First game we had was Boston versus Brooklyn, game 2. And, bro, it seemed like deja vu of game 1, other than, Brooklyn having a 17 or 19 point lead this game. Boston, they showing that defensive prowess, man. They getting all up under KD, because he don't really got that lower body strength, or honestly, even upper body strength. He doesn't really, that's not really his forte. So Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, all them boys were able to get up under him again, just like they did in game 1. You also had 7 Celtics players in double figures, 7 of them in double figures, which shows you how deep of a team they can be, and it also shows you, the team game that they were playing last night. Also, KD 4-17 from the field. I wanted to emphasize that because he didn't have an efficient game 1 or game 2. So KD isn't playing like KD, which is a big reason why the Nets aren't winning. And honestly, both games are close. Kyrie had a great game. Game 1, 39 points. That game they only up losing by a game winner, a crazy game winner. That little spinoff by Jason Tatum, which was crazy, bro. Kyrie went from 39 to having 10, and both games were still close. So that goes to show you that the Nets aren't far from winning. Like, they can win. These are both winnable games. They just weren't able to close them out, and a big part of that was probably home court advantage for Boston. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into the next game, the Sixers versus the Raptors last night. Sixers won by 3 points, 104-101. We just got done talking about Jason Tatum's game winner in game 1. Joel Embiid just hit a game winner walk-off 3-point shot to win the game. Last night he showed his dominant MVP form. And with the Raptors still struggling without Scotty Barnes, which is big. Scotty Barnes has been big for them in his rookie year, which is crazy to me. OG, Gary, and Precious, all 3 of them had 20-point games, but they couldn't pull it out. And you had the Bulls playing the Bucks. They beat the Bucks last night. They tied it 1-1, which honestly I thought this series was gonna be a gentleman's sweep, which. Honestly, yeah, it's 1-1. It's only 1-1. But the thing is, the Bulls are competitive in both games, even with the injuries they have with Lonzo and them. They've been competitive, man. The Bulls have been competitive. But the thing is, Middleton sprained MCL, bro. That's gonna be big because the Bulls got injuries. Now the Bucks got injuries. Now it kind of evens out now. But, Giannis had a crazy game with 33, 18, and 9. So, and they still ended up losing, bro, because that boy DeMar had 41, bro. 41 to carry that Bulls team to a win. He was not letting them lose last night. Which, DeMar, honestly, I would say this is his best year he's ever had. Because this is the most he's done in terms of volume. Like, DeMar has never had this crazy volume when it came to scoring before. I've never seen that with DeMar until this year. But yeah, man, that's the recap from yesterday's games, and let's go ahead and get into an actual series, because I've been out for a month. I haven't posted anything for a month, but now I want to go ahead and get to recapping all the series, because I haven't been able to really give my piece when it came to them. Honestly, I really haven't been able to give my opinion on the play-in, but I ain't gonna do that because the play-in was a while ago. So we just gonna get into what happened with the series, what's going on with all the series. And y'all know my team. I'm repping my team. Miami. We lit this year. Honestly, I feel like even though we were the number one seed, we've been underrated all year, bro. The Heat have been underrated all year, bro. And also Jimmy. Let's talk about Jimmy. Jimmy, y'all was talking about how the Heat don't have a superstar player. The Heat don't have this, that, and the third. And honestly, we're not that glamorous team that most people want us to be. But the thing is, we're so gritty. And you know who's the leader of that? Mr. Jimmy G. Buckets, bro. Jimmy Butler, bro. He had game one. He wasn't as dominant. But Jimmy, you can see, if you watch the game, Jimmy was carrying us game one in terms of morale. Him and Duncan, they were morality wise, they were what's the word? They were the most aggressive in terms of the way they went about it. Even though Jimmy had only 21 the first game, his impact and what he did in that game was crazy. But let's talk about game two. Jimmy dropped 45, and he showed y'all the people the naysayers who saying Jimmy can't carry a team. Jimmy's not a superstar. Jimmy has showed you in the 2020 playoffs that he can be that player. And now he's showing it again with, the 45 that he dropped in game two. Yes, it's only game two of the first round. I'm completely aware of that. But I just say this to say that Jimmy has shown plenty of times before that he can carry a team throughout the playoffs, and he can have crazy playoff runs. Also, Miami, we're the fourth best defense in terms of, how much the other team scores, the opposing team's scoring. We're number 4 in defense, and we're showing why we're number 4 in defense with, keeping Trae Young down to 8 points in the first game. The same Trae Young who owns New York, the same Trae Young that now owns Cleveland. We held him down to 8 points in game one, and also in game two, I believe he had 27 in game two, but he wasn't efficient game two. We were able to hold him down for game two also, which, he's able to get his scoring numbers, but he hasn't been efficient in either game. And I know y'all seen Trae. Trae was talking about how, the Heat got swept by the Bucks because we're not this, and he's going to be fine. And it's like, the Heat are a different team this year than they were last year, first of all. Second of all, the Hawks are a different team than they were last year. The Hawks aren't that same. They kind of have a similar roster, but they don't have that same pop that they had last year. Or it could have just been the East got better, whatever it might be. But the Hawks aren't the same team. They're not. They just, I don't know how to put it. They don't have that same aura they had last year. And honestly, I can't really say the reason why, but it's not the same. The Hawks aren't the same. The Heat are better. Let's talk about the offensive flow, which with Miami, we got crazy ball movement and player movement right now. It's like, honestly, I'm comparing us to a team that we're going to talk about later, but Miami and Golden State have been playing surprisingly similar. The ball movement and player movement offensively has been flawless for both teams, and on defense, the team defense. You got Bam down there holding down the paint and playing perimeter defense, which, let's just talk about how Bam gets robbed for not being defensive player of the year, not even being in the running for defensive player of the year, not even top 3, which is crazy. And I'll give respect to Marcus Smart, Rudy Gobert, Mikal Bridges, who were top 3, but it's like, come on, bro. Bam is defending the paint. He's defending the perimeter. In most cases, we put him on the opposing team's best player, and he gets robbed out of defensive player of the year like that. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me, to be honest. But yeah, man, the Heat, we're looking towards this. Looks like a sweep. This looks like a sweep. I would say gentleman sweep because the Hawks, or not even the Hawks, I believe Trae Young might be able to get them one. Trae Young might have a blow up game where, especially being in Atlanta, they're gonna have one of those games where Trae goes off. So I'm gonna say Hawks will take one, but this one's either a sweep or a gentleman sweep. Trae Young, we gonna shut you up, bro. Let's just put it like that. I feel like the Heat are gonna shut him up. Let's go to Milwaukee versus Chicago, and this is a weird series because even though the Bulls, this is the best year they've had in a while, I didn't expect this series to be too competitive based off of the injuries, and they're not a really good defensive team. They're a mediocre defensive team, and honestly, they don't have any bodies to throw at Giannis either. If we go point by point, them not being a great defensive team is pretty obvious. Vucevic is their big, so they're not going to really have a defensive anchor in the paint like that because of Vucevic. I like Patrick Williams defensively, especially as a perimeter defender because he's a versatile defender. He's long, tall, but he has long arms, wingspan, legs. He's also athletic. Patrick Williams, he's good defensively, but other than him, Caruso, and Lonzo, they don't really have any defensive guys like that, which is something they should be looking to this upcoming offseason. But, if you compare the Bucks all around offensive and defensive talent to the Bulls, yes, they have good offensive talent, but the offensive talent, I didn't see them being good enough to carry them, especially in terms of their defense not being that good, and especially them not having almost any bodies to throw at Giannis. And honestly, Game 2 proved it more than Game 1, even though the Bucks lost, that the Bulls can't do anything with Giannis with him dropping 33, 18 rebounds, and 9 assists. That proved that they don't have any bodies to throw at Giannis, but what the way the Bulls are playing it is they're going to let Giannis do his thing because they don't believe the rest of the team can beat them. They don't believe Jrue Holiday could beat them. They don't believe Chris Middleton could beat them. They don't believe Brook Lopez could beat them. But honestly, it's a good approach, especially considering that, Chris Middleton is down with a sprained MCL, which when it comes to playoff implications, that's big. That's big. Because now we know Middleton's not going to be 100% for the rest of the year or the rest of the playoffs. And the Bucks have one less guy to go at the Bulls with. Honestly, this series, man, it's starting to look like it's going to be a little bit more competitive than we thought it would be. Especially with Middleton going down. I was thinking the Bucks. I also thought this was going to be a gentleman sweep. This one looked like a gentleman sweep to me based off of the matchup, not necessarily the talent of the teams. I thought the Bulls couldn't match up with the Bucks like that, but this one's starting to look like it's going to be closer than we thought. Especially if DeMar keeps playing the way he played in Game 2. If DeMar keeps playing the way he played in Game 2, the Bulls have I wouldn't count them as the favorites, but I would say they would have a better chance to beat the Bucks, especially with Middleton being down. That it doesn't look too good for them if that stays away, if that keeps going the way it's going. But yeah, man, if Middleton's not back, if Middleton's not back in this series at least 85%, this looks like it's going 6 or 7. I would still say the Bucks are gonna win. But with Chicago having home court advantage and, DeMar having the momentum that he has right now, that one's going to get surprisingly close. It's going to be closer than we thought it would be. But yeah, man. This is my thing with Jrue Holiday though. My thing with Jrue Holiday is that, okay, Jrue Holiday is great defensively. He's a great defensive player. Nobody can say anything about him defensively. But offensively, he's a great playmaker. He's going to get his teammates involved. And even though he might not have crazy assist numbers, he is going to get his teammates involved, and I've seen his impact as a playmaker offensively. But in terms of like being a primary or one of the primary scorers, I haven't really seen that out of him. Like with Holiday, he's more like, you're gonna see that more like clutch time, but throughout the game, you don't really see that out of him. I don't really see that that dog offensively. I see that dog defensively, and you see the IQ. He has that IQ because you could see him, even if his assist numbers aren't crazy, he's dishing it out. He's getting his teammates involved, and he does make his teammates better, which is an underrated part of his game. But right now, the Bucks are gonna need him as a scorer, and I think Middleton's gonna be out. While Middleton is out, though, Holiday's gonna have to give them a good, I'll say, 22 to 24 points a game, consistently and efficiently. He's gonna have to do that, especially Middleton being out, because Giannis can't carry them, especially if DeMar keeps playing the way he's playing. The Bulls would have a way better chance at beating them if Holiday isn't doing what I said he needs to do, which is 22 to 24 and guarding DeMar. He's gonna have to guard DeMar, believe it or not, because if DeMar keeps doing what he's doing, this is gonna be close, bro. This is gonna be a close series. And even then, even with Middleton playing, y'all seen game one? Game one was close. Game one was way closer than it should have been, honestly. That was a grit and grind game. Giannis did his thing in that game too, but it's not enough for the Bucks to be comfortable. They can't be comfortable, especially now that they're arguably second or third best player, depending on what you feel about Middleton and Holiday. Especially with him being out, it looks a little bit more grim. But yeah, man, let's talk about Toronto and Philly. And that's a series that we all thought was going to be close. We all thought that series was going 6 or 7 at least. Which is, it's crazy that it's 3-0, because I'm like, Toronto doesn't have the depth. Like, in terms of their first 5 or 6 guys, they're really good. But first of all, they don't have that depth, and they don't have that superstar that can carry them. So honestly, I don't know why we thought it would be that close. Maybe because, Toronto does have Embiid's number. Toronto has they're good at putting that wall up with those big guys like Embiid or Giannis. They're good at getting that wall up and, making life tough on them. But, this series, this series has been, Philly has been dominant from the beginning, bro. It hasn't been close the whole series. And that's something none of us expected. We expected Philly to get, they're going to win their 2 home court games. They took care of home court, but to be up 3-0 and being this dominant in the series, bro, that's surprising to me. And I want to talk about James Harden too, because a lot of y'all in the media, bro, like y'all talk about how James Harden isn't he needs to be that superstar scorer, shot creator that he was in Houston for Philly to win. And I always thought that showed that a lot of people don't know what they're talking about, bro. When it comes to James Harden, when it comes to Philly, actually, let's talk about Philly. When Ben Simmons was in Philly, what did we always say about the Sixers? Ben Simmons is great defensively. Ben Simmons can, he's a great playmaker. He brings that to the table. He always brings that to the table. And he was also a great rebounder. What they always needed was a shot creator, but when it comes to shot creating, they needed someone to, for example, let's say James Harden breaks down his defender and he drives down the lane. Yes, you want him to finish, but what you really wanted out of that was spacing. You wanted spacing and shot creating. So let's say he beats his defender, whatever, and the rest of the team spaces out. And even in Embiid, he doesn't have to space out. You also, because James Harden has that lob threat. So for example, this is something Ben Simmons couldn't do. When he couldn't get the shot creation, right, or get the space, with his handles, drive past the defender, and lob it up, because the thing is, Ben Simmons wasn't a shooting threat. So, for example, when James Harden and Joel Embiid, they do that pick and roll, Joel Embiid has two options. He can pop, which is something he would have had to do with Ben Simmons. He would have had to pop, because if he didn't pop, the spacing was going to be trash. But with James Harden, he can roll, because the defender he doesn't know what to do. Is James Harden going to pull up from mid, which he honestly never does, but he does have that threat. Is James Harden going to pull up from mid? Is he going to pull up from three? Is he going to throw a lob? You have so many more options when it comes to that now, which is, that's something that people don't realize, is that James Harden is not only a playmaking threat, but he's a scoring threat. Even if he's not scoring crazy, that defender, in that defender's head, he's like, bro, what do I do? Like, if you had to guard James Harden and Joel Embiid on a pick and roll, bro, it's different from guarding Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, because Ben Simmons, you know what he's doing. He's driving to the rim, and either he's finishing it or he's going to pop it out to Joel Embiid. With James Harden, with that pick and roll, bro, either he can do a step back, he can drive, he can lob it up, he could do a pick and pop, there's so many more options, and that's what they needed James Harden for. It's not necessarily just shot creating, step back, Euro step, not just scoring. It's the threat. It's the amount of options that he and Joel Embiid has, and he's showing that that's what he's doing, bro. That's what he's doing. He's giving them that threat, and he's not even using it to just score. He's using it to make his teammates better. You see what Tyrese Maxey's doing? You like James Harden is the threat that they needed, not necessarily. Because it's nice to have that Houston James Harden. It would be nice for him to drop 35, 36 a game. But that's not what he's mainly needed for in Philly, because they have Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid's the number one option. Joel Embiid's the MVP, caliber player. So it's like, people don't really understand what James Harden's dynamic is needed for in Houston. It's not necessarily just shot creator, scoring James Harden. They need shot creator, playmaking James Harden, which gives them the option of, so many more options in terms of opening their playbook and opening up, the way Joel Embiid, opening up Joel Embiid's arsenal and the rest of the team's arsenal. So, that's my take on James Harden and, what Philly actually really needed him for. Also, the Raptors are really hurting without Scotty Barnes, man. Scotty Barnes, he would have been nice as a perimeter defender when it comes to throwing bodies at Tobias or James or Tyrese or even Joel Embiid. If they want to switch, Philly wants to switch, Scotty Barnes could switch on Joel Embiid for a play or two and probably cause a stop. But they're really hurting without Scotty Barnes, and honestly, offensively, he's underrated offensively. In terms of what he brings to the table for Toronto. So yeah, man, Raptors really hurting without Scotty Barnes. Philly 3-0. It looks like they're gonna close down Game 4, man. Go on to the next series, and they're probably gonna play in Miami in round 2, which is I can't wait for that. But yeah, man, bro, let's go to the West. Let me go ahead and get to the notes. Let's go to the West, man. When it comes to the West, bro, like it's more contested, but it's weird because with those series, like I expected the East to have a contested first round. I did not expect the West to have the first round that we had so far. It's only 2 games, guys. Let's just remember that, because I know some people are gonna try to get on me like, bro, he's reacting to only 2 games in the first round. This is just my opinion so far. And the first series I want to talk about is Memphis and Minnesota, man. That series, honestly, I thought that I predicted Memphis in 6, right? But it's starting to look like it's going to be that way. It's starting to look like it's going to be that way. Timberwolves rode the wave of the play-in, beating the Clippers and then celebrating it like it was a championship. Patrick Beverley crying, and they rode that wave into Game 1, man. They caught the Grizzlies lacking. The Grizzlies got caught lacking, and they're riding that. They rode that wave in game one. Anthony Edwards had like 36. After dropping what he dropped in the play-in. And the Grizzlies punched him in the not the Grizzlies, the Timberwolves punched him in the mouth, especially with Cat. Cat, came back from the play-in, that terrible play-in game he had. He came back in game one and he gave it to the Grizzlies game one. Pause. But the Grizzlies came back in game two with that Rough Rider mentality, bro. They came back with that Rough Rider mentality. Y'all seen y'all talking about stay over there. We don't want y'all no more. Y'all switched up. Which, honestly, I don't know who he's talking about because most people still had the Grizzlies winning the series. But the Grizzlies instilled their dominance in game two. And the thing about Ja that I liked what he did in game two is he didn't have that crazy volume that he's had all year. But he did have that impact when it came to the energy, when it came to, coming at the Timberwolves. And when it comes to that leadership, especially as a young player, that's only his third year. That leadership that he's been having in his third year, especially this year and last year, because last year they beat the Warriors in the play-in and they end up making the playoffs. They end up, playing the first seed in Utah last year, winning a game. Like, Ja has showed that leadership, that leadership skill and it is a skill. He showed that he has the skill to, bring the team along, even though the Grizzlies went 22-2 without Ja. So they have the talent. They've always had the talent. They don't need Ja to have the volume because the rest of the team is talented with Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., Steven Adams, Dylan Brooks, all those guys, bro. They have the talent. So that what I'm saying is like Ja doesn't need to have that, volume. But he does need to have that leadership, and he does need to be consistent when it comes to what he's doing on the court and what he's doing with the leadership. In Minnesota, bro, the thing with Minnesota for me is that, and I think y'all seen, I don't know if y'all watched the TNT, halftime shows or, the after game shows. Charles Barkley said this himself. He was like, Minnesota has showed their inexperience when it comes to their youth. And in terms of like how they handle momentum, they ride the high wave, but when they get slow, they don't know how to kind of make a run after a run. So if the Grizzlies make a run, Minnesota, they're not making a run because as a young team, they're so inexperienced that when it comes to playoff, moments and things of that nature, that they don't know how to bounce back, but they do know how to ride the high wave as they shown in game one. Also, consistency. Cat is someone who struggles with consistency, especially in the playoffs. I don't know if y'all remember Cat in, I believe it was the 2018 playoffs when they had Jimmy Butler, they had Andrew Wiggins, and they made the playoffs, and they played the Rockets, which were a great team at the time. They were actually the best team in the West at the time, but he was super inconsistent, especially with that Clint Capella matchup that he had. He was super inconsistent. He's doing the same thing in this series when it comes to, having a good game one, game two. He doesn't have a good game. Who God knows what he's going to do game three, game four, or the rest of the series. So when it comes to consistency, they don't have that star player other than Anthony Edwards, who honestly is always consistent. They don't really have that superstar player that's going to be, that's going to take them to the promised land game in and game out. So another series I wanted to get into, Dallas versus Utah. And yeah, man, bro, Utah doesn't look like a team that wants to play together, bro. Like you can see it when they play, bro. It's like for some reason Donovan Mitchell won't get Rudy Gobert the ball, and even when he has a mismatch on him, like he can have a mismatch like Jalen Brunson, for example, on him. And for some reason, Donovan Mitchell won't get on the ball. And matter of fact, anybody on that team, they won't get him the ball. I'm not sure why they're doing that. I'm not sure what's going on with Utah. I don't understand what's going on with that turmoil, or if they have beef or what, anything of that nature. But I do see that, as a little weird that, they're not getting, they're not running the offense as efficiently as they could be, Also, man, Dallas hanging in there with Utah without Luka, bro. That's interesting to me. That's the interesting part, because it's like the thing about Dallas without Luka is that they don't really have as much depth as other teams may have, like the Warriors or the Heat or anybody of that nature, or even the Grizzlies. So it's kind of surprising that, you know, Dallas is hanging in there with Utah, especially considering the fact that Luka is an all NBA player. Imagine missing an all NBA player, and that's the only all NBA player you have on your team, and you're still tied 1-1 with the 5th seed. That's interesting. You know, if Utah ends up losing, bro, if you want me to be honest, bro, they should blow it up. They should just blow it up, because it doesn't make sense to keep that team together, especially them. You know, they end up underperforming every year in the playoffs, and you know, they don't even like playing with each other, and you can see it. You could visually see that they don't like playing with each other, and you know, they just need to blow it up, bro. They just need to blow it up, bro. And and the thing is, you don't have to blow it up and just trade everyone, get rid of everyone. You could blow it up and just get rid of Donovan Mitchell. No, not Donovan Mitchell. That's the one you keep. I'm tripping. You don't trade Donovan Mitchell. You trade Rudy Gobert. You trade Rudy Gobert, and you get as many pieces for him as you can. And, you know, you try to build around Donovan Mitchell the best way you can, especially considering that Donovan Mitchell is a prototypical, you know, guard that you want in today's game, with the shot creation and the spacing, and he's an underrated playmaker, the athleticism. Like, Donovan Mitchell's the guy you want on your team, you know, for the near future. But, you know, if you could trade Rudy Gobert and you could go get, you know, who, God knows what, maybe a couple picks, maybe a couple young guys, a pair of Donovan Mitchell, who knows, but you want to blow it up, because you're not going nowhere with this team. But, you know, when it comes to the series, man, if Luka comes back, bro, if Luka ends up coming back, it's over. It's over. They're not, honestly, they wouldn't even win another game. They wouldn't win another game if Luka was to come back. So, also, let's give my props to Jalen Brunson, bro, dropping 41 in game 2, bro. That's impressive. Was it 41 or 42? One of those. Jalen Brunson, bro, he was killing them. And it's the fact that you can't, if you can't contain a guy like Jalen Brunson, with all due respect, you can't contain a guy like Luka. And if those guys are together on the court and you can't, you know, it's over for them. I also wanted to talk about Phoenix and New Orleans. And the thing about that series is New Orleans is showing a lot of resolve. And they've been showing this resolve all year, especially, you know, without having Zion all year, and, you know, starting the season off 1-12, and now they're, you know, they won only 36 games in the year, but, you know, they make the playoffs because they win both playing games that they play, and then on top of that, they go into Phoenix and they take game 2. That's big. And also, they did compete in game 1. Let's not forget, Chris Paul had that crazy fourth quarter, you know, that gave the Suns the win in game 1, but the Pelicans were competing in game 1. They competed in both games in Phoenix. So I like the fact that, you know, CJ and Brandon Ingram, they're not just going to lay down, and they're keeping things intact. Which shows you what this team can be if they can get their number 1 pick back, Zion Williamson, you know. This team is way better than their record indicates that they are, and you know, they're actually showing what they can do. Especially with they got the little role players like Jose Alvarado. They got players like Jackson Hayes, like Trey Murphy, who's a really good three-point shooter that they could use when Zion comes back. I like this New Orleans team. I like the way they're playing, especially with, you know, games 1 and 2. I still think they lose the series, but they are showing you a lot. They're showing you a lot of potential in what they could be for the upcoming future. Also, Devin Booker, bro, him being like so before he goes out, right, he has a 31-point half, which is like, okay, that's D-Book. You expect that. It's playoff time. But it's like, now that you don't have that production, especially him being out with the hamstring, that scares you. Because yeah, the Suns probably will still beat the Pelicans, but even without Devin Booker, but that has huge playoff implication in terms of getting, going to the conference finals, going to the finals. Like, that's big right there, even in the second round, because they're probably going to have to play Dallas in the second round, and they'll have Luka back by then. So it's like, especially with the hamstring, bro. A hamstring is scary. Because we all seen when Chris Paul had his hamstring, he couldn't get rid of it. He couldn't shake it. You seen when James Harden had his hamstring issues, he couldn't shake it. So it's like, Devin Booker being out with hamstring tightness is what they're calling it. They're calling it hamstring tightness. That's huge. Not for this series necessarily, but that's going to be huge for the next series. Playing Dallas most likely in the conference finals, potentially playing Memphis or Golden State with a injured Devin Booker. That's going to be tough. But Chris Paul, I believe in him. I believe Chris Paul can lead them. Especially past the first round. They can go past the first round without D-Book, but going into the second and third round, and maybe even the NBA finals, bro, that's a tough one. That's going to be tough. But yeah, man, my takeaway from this series, New Orleans so far, they've been fighting, they've been staying in it. They got this series tied. They took home court advantage. CJ and Brandon Ingram, there's no reason not to believe in them. We've seen them both show up in playoff games. And yeah, man, when it comes to Phoenix, bro, they got to get D-Book back healthy, at least 90%, or it's not looking too good for them when it comes to, getting deeper into the playoffs. When it comes to Golden State versus Denver, now that's a series that honestly I'm enjoying the most so far, other than Brooklyn and Boston, of course. I'm enjoying that series the most because of all the all the animation that's going on and that's going into it. All the entertainment. Denver, you can see them visually frustrated. You can see Golden State visually flowing offensively and defensively. They're playing flawlessly, man. I love the beautiful basketball. Offensively when it comes to a ball movement, a player movement, and also defensively with the team defense. They're throwing a whole bunch of different looks at Jokic and Monte Morris and Aaron Gordon and guys of that nature, and they're causing them to not play like that same team we've seen Denver play like all year. And Jokic hasn't been able to even get his guys involved because most teams will double Jokic because Jokic is so dominant, with his floater game and his sky hook, his jump hook, his jump shot. But Golden State's letting him take those because what Golden State's doing is they're throwing Draymond on, a defensive player of the year. They're throwing Draymond on him and having him just do what you can. And the crazy thing about that is Jokic has like 4 inches, 50 pounds on Draymond. So it's like, bro, Draymond is doing an amazing job on Jokic, especially considering Jokic's skill and Jokic's size. So Golden State just throwing Draymond on him. They're throwing Draymond on him, and they're not doubling. The reason why they're not doubling because they know if they double, Jokic is going to find his guys. And that's what Jokic has been doing all year. So what Golden State's doing is they're swarming on the perimeter players because they don't want Jokic to find his guys because that's where he's the most effective at, is finding his guys and making his teammates better. So Jokic hasn't had the same impact that he's had all year because Golden State knows how to play him. And Draymond also, he's not clamping him up, but what Draymond is doing, bro, is he's slowing him down to the point where Jokic can't really score as efficiently as he's used to scoring, and the team defense is making him not be able to make his teammates better or get his teammates the ball as much as he can get them the ball. So also, bro, Jordan Poole, what's going on? Yo, Jordan Poole has literally broken out at the perfect time, especially in the playoffs. This man, Jordan Poole, in game 1 and game 2, he's taking the pressure off of Steph and Clay because, Clay's coming off of his 2 years off, and this is his first playoff game since the 2019 finals. And you got Steph, who came into the playoffs with a little bit of an ankle situation because, Marcus Smart unnecessarily dived at his ankles versus that, in that Celtics game, which I actually watched live. And I remember Steve Kerr getting mad because Steve Kerr was like, bro, like, what you doing? Like, and the playoffs are coming. Like, it was a month before the playoffs, and the Warriors are just trying to hit their stride. And so Steph has been coming off the bench, which honestly, Steph Curry coming off the bench, he's the best six man of all time. If you're gonna have Steph Curry coming off the bench, and Jordan Poole has been taking pressure off of the Splash Brothers because they don't gotta do what they usually do. And you can see in game 1, Steph and Clay, they were good, but it wasn't Steph and Clay. The Warriors as a team played amazing. But in game 2, bro, Steph coming off the bench dropped like 34, and Jordan Poole did what he did. Clay dropped, what he did. I think he gave him about 20 both games, which is good, especially being back in the playoffs for the first time in 3 years. That's good for Clay, He doesn't have that pressure. Clay and Steph don't have that pressure, and Jordan Poole has been taking it off of him. And that 3G lineup is what they're calling it. It's a new death lineup with Steph, Clay, Poole, Wiggins, Draymond. That lineup literally has every single thing a basketball team or lineup can ever want, which is shooting, shot creation, finishing, defense, perimeter defense, interior defense, ball movement, player movement. Like that team, that lineup literally has everything any lineup should ever need. And it's like when they're all those 5 guys are on the court together, man, it's crazy. It gets crazy. That's when they start making their runs, and there's nothing Denver can do. Denver doesn't have the perimeter, defenders like that. And offensively, other than Jokic, what are they going to do? There's not really any shot creation due to Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. being out. So the thing about Michael Porter Jr. for me, though, is giving him that max contract was crazy. And it's not because of the skill. Talent-wise, he has the potential to be a max player. But the fact that they gave it to him, especially after the injuries, and he hasn't made an all-star team yet, I feel like giving him a max extension was a little bit, it was a little bit premature. But having him playing would help. It would help them, especially offensively, trying to keep up with Golden State. And also Jamal Murray, we seen what he did in the bubble. We know what Jamal Murray's capable of. So missing out on Jamal Murray, that's a tough one too, man. Golden State and Denver, Golden State versus Denver matchup would have been a lot closer if those two guys were playing. I still think Golden State will win, but it would be a lot more of a series if them two were playing. But the thing is, I'm not gonna give up on Denver yet. They still have a small chance due to, honestly, the numbers on. Honestly, this is only based off of Denver's home court. With the altitude and their home court winning percentage of their all-time home court winning percentage. It's hard to win in Denver as a visiting team. Denver, Utah, like those two home courts, it's hard to win there, bro. Due to as an away team, you're high in the altitude. It's harder to breathe. You can't really move the same. You can't really run the same. Like, things are different, And then you got to play against a home crowd, then playing against an MVP. Like, it's not going to be a cakewalk in Denver. Hopefully Denver can make this series a little bit more, competitive than it's been so far. But yeah, man, that's all I got for y'all for today. Just, look out for, me doing this every day. We're going to drop an episode every day this time for sure. No more hiatuses. Got everything set up, so we don't really got to take no breaks. And another thing to look out for is a series when it comes to me, judging, the playoffs that missed the playoffs, lost in the play-in, or ends up getting eliminated in the playoffs. I'm gonna make a literal breakdown of what they should do in their with the upcoming free agency, the upcoming draft, salary caps, or everything. Literally breaking down everything for every one of those teams. Eventually, doing all 30 teams after the NBA Finals ends. So yeah, man. Just look out for tomorrow for a new episode. And yeah, man, we out. Peace.